Hello everyone and welcome back to TideClan. We're already on year 3. I can't believe I've drawn so many cats. Oh gosh. This year I have actually been drawing them a little bit differently, which you guys will definitely see on the first couple ones, and then I start like cleaning them up a little bit better as I get used to this drawing style. So basically I have been doing a no sketch and, well, I mean a clean sketch, I guess. Kind of style where I draw the cats and then in the process, like I sketch them and clean up the line art as I go. So that has actually been working quite well for me, and also means that I get to make them a little bit faster, which definitely helps on the how much energy I have to spend on each year. So yes, I hope you guys enjoy. But as a little treat, I suppose, I have actually also been starting to draw backgrounds. Very, very, very simple backgrounds, mind you, just to have something there. So you guys will see them a lot more in environments or scenes with each other and stuff like that, which I personally think makes it all the more better. But with that being said, let's head into this year 3. So we are, of course, starting off with Tidestar, who has actually been thinking about the rogues that are roaming around and wonders if he should make an alliance with them. He quickly dismisses this idea, however, so that doesn't really ever come to anything. Anywho, he also confidently dismisses Badgertooth's worries for weather, which Badgertooth is very good at, and because of this, he unfortunately leads the patrol into a storm, like a bad one. And the patrol is made of Tidestar, Eaglewing, Tempestfur, and Gorseclaw. He and one other warrior that we will get to actually lose their lives. So Tidestar only has 7 lives left, but one of his warriors are dead. And when he wakes up, sheltered from the rain with his patrol around him, the guilt from leading them out in this storm when he survives just gnaws at him from the insides. And he finally realizes the downside of his own confidence sometimes. Tidestar is furious to find both Featherbreeze, Badgertooth, and Tempestfur all have been seen with cats from outside the border. He puts them all on guard duty and dawn patrol for the next couple moons. And Featherbreeze questions him, but he assures that he was very clear. After all, the medicine cat does have an apprentice now. So Featherbreeze has gotten an apprentice, but immediately after, he's actually sent out to do warrior duties. I don't know what's going through Tidestar's head with that, but yeah, that's a thing. Tidestar also gets into a lot of fights with Echopaw due to his treatment of her mentor, that we'll get into later, and he's very frustrated with the young she-cat. So Tidestar has a bad habit of looking for trouble after he deems cats unreliable. He doesn't believe they're doing bad things on purpose, but they need a little bit of a helping paw. He's also furious at all the extra rogue activity that's been going on and start sending out more patrols. Definitely not allies with these rogues, by the way. They start getting a little bit more aggressive as time goes on. So, on to Floodheart, who is our deputy. And of course, he is old, and you guys were not very happy about that last time. Which is fair. I don't pick the deputies. They are randomized, so that's pretty fun. But yes, Tidestar did pick another old cat, so I will spoil that he actually does not stay deputy. But let's see how his year has been first. So he's still feeling very down over Miss Stream's death, of course. but he holds his head high in front of others, a little bit masking his feelings, which is not a good way to deal with it, but that's what he's doing. He also leads a search patrol after the storm dies. He's worried for his leader and the warriors on the patrol. When he does find them, one of them is of course dead, and his grief just comes rushing back. He really liked this cat, and it's sad to see them go. A couple days later, he does actually step down as deputy and requests a Sandpaw to be given to someone else. So, without the responsibility of being deputy, however, he can finally just sit down and handle his own grief. He slowly becomes happier and starts enjoying life again. He also starts visiting Miss Dream's death, and not just to sit there and dwell over the past, but really to accept what happens and know that they will meet again in StarClan. So he and Whitefoot actually start hanging out again, especially with a certain common interest now. And they become very, very close. Not romantically, by the way, platonically close. Floodheart is also embarrassed when he accidentally picks the wrong call and gets a newly joined clanmate injured by a grey fox due to his mistake. When a couple of kittens arrive to the clan, Floodheart can feel his heart warm at the sight, and the thought of, and though he's lost hope for reconnecting with Gorseclaw, he's happy to see the little ones running around. He does not adopt them, however. We will get to who now adopts them later. As winter, however, comes, Floodheart's bones start aching and he requests to retire. And Tidestar, of course, honors him for his tireless service. Floodheart now enjoys his time telling stories to the two kittens, now apprentices, together with Nightclaw. And our new deputy, Whitefoot! Of course, that is the common interest she and Floodheart now has. So after she and her apprentice return to camp with some prey, she's surprised to find herself being called to the leader's den. Tidestar gives her a proud look when when he gives her the news he wants her to be his deputy. She can't even answer before they hear Lakepaw yowl in excitement. Apparently he had been eavesdropping, and Whitefoot accepts the offer happily. So she's the deputy now, and that is definitely a young cat, so hopefully we'll see her a couple years before something happens. Hopefully. Whitefoot happily loiters around one of the borders looking for a specific cat. She and Splashdusk finally meet up, and the two run around outside the territory for a quick frolic, loving the warm wind in their fur and the salty water splashing under their paws. Absolutely adorable. I do approve. Whitefoot is also working hard, and right as she hopes for a break, there is Splashdusk inviting her for a fun training session, and she couldn't be happier. Splashdusk just seems to know exactly when she needs a break, especially because, as I said, she is a little bit younger, or on the younger side, and that's a lot of responsibility to be deputy. Whitefoot has also found herself catching feelings for the determined yet silly Badgertooth. However, when she asks him out, it becomes a little bit public, a little bit more public than she had first wanted. And when he says no, it also gets way worse. And after her confession to Badgertooth, she ends up helping the apprentices with some training to get her mind off things. So, Featherbreeze. Of course, he has been a warrior this year, which has not gone well with him. Featherbreeze is proud of having his first apprentice, and though he loves them, they're a bit bad at keeping their claws sheathed. And now that we actually know that both Lakepaw and Sandpaw are warrior apprentices, I will admit that the medicine cat apprentice is actually Echopaw. Yeah, the one who wanted to be leader. So that's a little bit funny. The game did that on its own. I was gonna make Lakepaw Medicine Cat, I believe, but that clearly didn't happen. So he and his apprentice actually run into a queen having a litter. They try to help, but they are unsuccessful in saving any of them. When they get back to a camp with cold bodies, Tidestar gives them a horribly cold and unsympathetic look. Featherbreeze, of course, just holds his gaze. And this, if you guys don't understand really why he's being so cold, is because Featherbreeze has always been one to help outsiders, and Tidestar just doesn't like that. Featherbreeze is also the first cat to notice how bitter Floodheart is after his friend's death. His friend being the warrior who died in the Storm Patrol. So, as punishment for this helping a stranger cat, he is punished by Tidestar, of course. He worries less about himself and more for his clanmates and his apprentice, however. They're not very far into their... Well, she's not very far into her training, and he worries for her, especially when she's tasked with a cat injured by rats. Yeah, and if you guys don't know, rats are very infectious, so that could that could turn bad real fast. Featherbreeze is also relieved when he's finally allowed to go and do his job all the way. Like, this happened in spring, and he's relieved in autumn. So, yeah, he was not Medicine Cat for a long time. He instantly focuses and tells Echopaw to go gather herbs while he's busy. During the past couple moons, the two of them have grown close. Featherbreeze becomes even more frustrated with Tidestar when he realizes that Echopaw hasn't been keeping the herbs right, and a pest got in, killing all their herbs, like every single one in the herb stores. He doesn't blame Echopaw in the slightest, as much as she was much too young and early in her training to have all that responsibility on her own. He does, however, notice how stressed she is, and decides to slow down her training and focus more on strengthening her mind. This seems to work on Echopaw, and Echopaw becomes more focused and confident as the days go. So, on to Echopaw. Just before her apprentice ceremony, Echo Kid actually realizes that her calling is for being a medicine cat, not the leader she thought she was gonna be. She always wanted to be a warrior and eventually, of course, lead, but in this moment, she felt something pull her away from that path. She's proud to be named Echopaw and a medicine cat apprentice, and is given a maple leaf from her mother as congratulations. Early on in Echopaw's apprenticeship, she finds herself carrying the cold body of a kitten, not much younger than herself. Instead of breaking her, this grief built her certainty in her path. Echopaw finds herself pressured but determined to do well on her solo moon as Featherbreeze is being punished for trying to save a dying queen. It's so unfair. Tidestar clearly had problems, and Echopaw was confident she could help her clan as a medicine cat. Echopaw is super proud when Featherbreeze shows her how to gather and use herbs on her mother, Tempestfur's wounds. As her brother becomes warriors, all of Sandpaw's, now obviously a warrior, sneers are suddenly aimed at her instead. She feels like she's falling behind. Featherbreeze sends her on her first patrol. Sends her on her first solo patrol, while having a mentor, of course. And she excitedly goes to an herb patch she knows, only to find that it is withered and destroyed. Her tail droops miserably as she heads back to camp empty-pawed. Echopaw also tries her best to keep up with her duties, but is super relieved when Featherbreeze finally returns as a full medicine cat. It was not only a lot of decisions being made, she had loads more responsibility, and she now truly understands why experience is so important. When the herb stores go bad, Echopaw is convinced she did something wrong, and that it's all her fault that the herbs are useless. Her brother's leg, Sandpaw, I believe, is getting worse, and if he doesn't make it, it'll all be on her paws. Sandpaw's leg, however, does eventually get better, and Echopaw is relieved as signs of warmer seasons come. So here we have Eaglewing. I don't have too much to say about Eaglewing this year, actually. He is still a stinky old man. I can tell you guys that much. But he's actually starts the year off by being frustrated with the younger warriors sneering at him. He influences Floodheart to send them on a boring task, and this just earns him even more sneers and snickers, which really frustrates him. But I mean, Eaglewing, you are an old man bullying little apprentices. Like, I don't know. You've been doing this your entire life. I don't know what's up with him, but anywho, he is also proud to serve his leader, and of course he was on the patrol with the storm. He does actually dismiss Badgertooth's warning along with Tidestar, as he just wants to be recognized by Tidestar, I suppose. On the patrol, however, he is almost hit by lightning after climbing a tree to get a squirrel. Terrified, he sprints away and Tidestar tries to stop him. It's too late as they both fall off a cliff, landing awkwardly. And he is actually the warrior who dies and wakes up in StarClan. So, Aspenrip got a little bit of an ambitious streak last year. Just a little thought, a little shimmer, a little seed being planted in his head. Just at the end of last year. But he is actually very disappointed when he is in fact not given an apprentice out of Lake Sand and Echo Kit. And he quickly gives up the hope that Tidestar actually wants him as deputy. By the time the new apprentices will come around, because there aren't any kits in the clan right now, he believes he will be retired. He scolds himself silently for getting his hopes up like that at his age. He's also angry at Tidestar for letting Tempestfur hunt in two-leg trash, leading to her getting injured by rats. So yeah, Tempestfur is the cat who's injured with the rats. He hangs out and hunts for the she-cat. Slowly they become more romantic. Aspenrip starts showing her shells, and when Lakepaw visits, he and the apprentice actually build little shell hills together, which is so cute. And with Whitefoot's new responsibility as deputy, it's not uncommon for Aspenrip to borrow Lakepaw and train him and Sandpaw together. He enjoys hanging out with Tempestfur's kits, and it actually makes him long for something more. On one of these patrols, they hear a sick cat coughing. Aspenrip slowly walks over, asking Sandpaw to fetch Featherbreeze. He runs off and Lakepaw stays behind as Aspenrip approaches. They end up helping the cat and she's grateful enough to stay. At one point, Aspenrip runs into an old rogue acquaintance. Aspenrip sees how desperate his former friend was, and they end up getting into a huge fight over a small morsel in the territory, despite Aspenrip suggesting to help hunt beyond TideClan's borders, which really saddens him. To know that his friends are out here that desperate. And he really wanted to help, but it just didn't happen. In winter, he does slip on a frozen rock with a Shellburst and tries to catch her, but fails, leading to her getting a sprained paw. So all in all, he's been having a pretty okay year. He's been hanging out a lot with Tempestfur. They aren't mates yet, much to his disappointment. But we'll see how that goes next year. So, on to Lakeminnow. He was apprenticed to Whitefoot, and her eyes unnerved him a bit, but he's relieved to find that she's actually a very nice cat. Lakepaw and Whitefoot often go to the Elder's Den to hear Nightclaw's stories and get tips from when Whitefoot was her apprentice. Lakepaw finds it pretty cool to see the difference in age like this. He follows every step Whitefoot takes and is so proud of his mentor becoming deputy. As you guys heard, he let out a loud yowl. After a small nudge from Whitefoot, Lakepaw stumbles forward to be named a warrior at only 11 months old. He earns the name Lakeminnow and is honored for his insight. After becoming a warrior, Lakeminnow is on a hunting patrol that ends up catching a huge amount of prey. He's a bit shy about all the attention, but it was fun serving his clan well. Lakeminnow is also the victim of yet another prank set by his brother, now also a warrior, Sandtuft. He gets a thorn stuck in his paw after fluffing his nest and is laughed at by his brother. Lakeminnow accidentally walks in on Shellburst and Nightclaw talking together and ends up joining in on their conversation. Nightclaw even says a snarky comment at all of Santuft's bullying and suggests they prank him. The two younger cats just laugh. When Santuft's injured leg gets worse and infected, Lakeminnow scolds himself for being so mean as to talk behind his brother's back. Feeling guilty, he tries to help Sandtuft the best he can, despite his brother simply telling him to go away. And on to Sandtuft. A lot has happened with him this year, so let's get into it. He's apprenticed to Eaglewing, and Sandpaw actually finds his mentor pretty darn dull. With Echopaw in the medicine den, he now has a chance to become leader instead of her. He's grown very ambitious ever since they became apprentices, and with his charismatic nature, he often gets in trouble. He doesn't see the medicine cat role as anything special and wants to become a warrior before Echopaw realizes this and tries to become a real apprentice. He simply does not see Echopaw as even learning anything, which is very small-minded Sandtuft. Aspenrip takes over his training after Eaglewing's death. Sandpaw is at first excited to be training with an experienced former rogue, until Aspenrip teaches him something about patience and duty as they gather moss. Sandpaw suggests using something to disguise his and Aspenrip's scent with. His mentor agrees and tells him to find something. He ends up finding something that scares away all the prey, and Aspenrip didn't tell him his mistake until after their hunt. Safe to say, he does not like his mentor. And as you guys might be able to see in the drawing about now, he does not like really training with his mentor and brother either. Sandpaw continuously pranks and bullies Echopaw, calling her Echo Kit most of the time, and asking how it feels picking flowers all day. It doesn't get better when Echopaw comes back to camp one day, her face swollen because she was picking catmint. Sandpaw proudly walks forward to gain his warrior name as well, only at 11 months old. He's named Sandtuft and honored for his leadership somehow. He'd never admitted to anyone, but he found it pretty funny when Echopaw actually returned to camp empty-pawed after visiting the herb patch he'd actually destroyed after hearing her talk about it to Lakeminnow. Sandtuft starts following Whitefoot's moves and takes her and Tidestar's side in everything. He's determined to one day become leader of TideClan, and for that he must earn their respect. He goes on a patrol with both the leader and deputy, determined to show how responsible he is. He scans the ground. Suddenly, he finds some paw prints and following them, only to realize it was his own. Embarrassed, he heads back to the patrol, claiming he neutralized the threat. He continues his patrol with Tidestar and is shocked when a group of rogues actually challenge the patrol of 4 cats. Sandtuft is ashamed at being targeted, as he was the weakest cat there, and is put in the medicine cat den with a mangled leg. He's fuming with anger as his sister Echopaw attends to his wounds. Even after all the sneering he's done, she keeps completely quiet during his treatment. Webnest starts off the year a little bit weirdly as he confidently crosses a raging thunder path and hunts around two-leg traps without worry. He realizes that the clan looks at him uneasily for this, but he doesn't see the problem. Two legs are just not that scary. Webnest is surprised to find himself gaining respect for Shellburst as she tackles headfirst onto a rogue, driving them out together with him. As the warmer weather comes around, he does take care of Sandpaw one day when his mentor is in the medicine den. He misjudges a pounce and sprains his leg, having to lean on the small apprentice the whole way back to camp. How embarrassing. He's unsure if of his place in TideClan. The life of kitty pet sounds pretty good after what he heard from a former kitty pet who joined the clan. And we'll get to her later. When he gets responsibility for a younger apprentice, however, that suddenly joins, he can't help but feel a sense of purpose as he's teaching her everything he knows about survival, as well as how to act as a clan cat. So he really bonded with Honeyfur, again platonically, and they actually brought out the better in each other. Well, she at least brought out the better in Webnest. So Honeyfur joins in autumn, and she actually begs to join TideClan after she loses her sister just a couple days ago, and she can't survive on her own anymore. She's accepted and becomes Honeypaw with Webnest as her mentor. She's embarrassed at her first patrol includes her getting excited over some paw prints in the sand, only to realize that it were her own. She actually really quickly earns the name Honeyfur at the age of 12 moons, and is surprised to find the whole clan yowling in congratulations. The whole clan just seems to love her. I don't know, she had high relationships with like everyone. Honeyfur also likes to cheer up her clanmates by taking them on personal little strolls where she gets to learn more about them, as well as cheer them up. One cat she just can't seem to get close to, however, is Gorseclaw. The she-cat is almost never in camp, and when she is, there is no getting contact with her. Tempestfur actually got an apprentice this year, and I'm very excited to see how she has grown. So, on the Storm Patrol, Tempestfur springs into action. She realizes the danger as Gorseclaw runs after her leader and Eaglewing. She sprints ahead of her and trips her. The young warrior is furious at first until they reach the two toms, dead at the bottom of the cliff. And I can tell you, Gorseclaw was shocked. And so was Tempestfur, of course, but she really stood up and did what had to be done. And led Gorseclaw down to get Tidestar to safety, claiming that Eaglewing was just too late to save. Tempestfur was hunting in a two-leg area due to Tidestar's instructions and ended up getting ambushed by rats. They did hurt her and she got stuck in the medicine den for a while, but her injury does finally feel better and she and Aspenrip lay in the warm sun, and unfortunately they both get heat stroke, leading them both to be stuck in the medicine den for yet another day. As the cold winds start increasing, Tempestfur is filled with energy and her pelt itches to run, which is so funny. I love that her name just... with her name, it just fits so well. Every time the colder seasons come, she just gets a burst of energy. However, in Leafbear, she actually gets her first apprentice, who ends up being a real pawful, just as fast and adventurous as her. The two are a good match, and she's more often than not faster than them. Anyways, considering she's so much bigger, of course. But yeah, Streampaw is definitely fast. He is quite the agile little kitty. Speaking of, Stream Kit was immediately stuck listening to stories that Nightclaw had. He loved the story of the clan and was excited to be part of it. He is apprenticed to Tempestfur, of course, and starts getting really adventurous, sometimes running ahead from pure joy. He doesn't mean to run ahead and always apologizes when he's found or comes back on his own. Tempestfur never really scolds him for it, but makes sure to teach him why it's important to stick together and what to do if you're alone. When he returns to camp, there's nothing better to do than lie down and relax while hearing more stories from his adoptive mother, Nightclaw, and Floodheart. So here we have two new faces. We have Sofa Swipe, which I can't with her name. She came in as Sofa something, and I had to keep it. It was perfect. And River Drizzle, who we don't really have a lot to go off of. But let's start with Sofa Swipe first. She was left by her housefolk due to being sick. Sofa was interested in the wild since the two legs are no longer reliable, and she asks to join the clan. Despite her sickness, she is accepted and takes on the name Sofa Swipe due to being a good fighter. And by fighter, you know, it's pretty funny though. She just scratches up all the sofas. She is diagnosed with green cough, unfortunately, but a very light version, and it soon goes away in the warm green leaf air. She's offended when Webnest actually talks to her about how soft kitty pet life is, and that he's impressed that she could be so fit and after having lived as one. Though it was a compliment, to her, Sofa Swipe is actually very offended about the stereotype and leaves after a snarky comment, leaving Webnest completely baffled. Sofa Swipe is injured earlier in the year and ends up losing an eye for it. She's grateful when Whitefoot doesn't leave her out as a vulnerable warrior and instead encourages her to work hard. Sofa Swipe is also horrified to find a kitty pet left to fend for themselves in the wild after their two legs left for warmer weather, much like herself. She can see when two legs are wrong, and in this instance, she curses them. And also, just as a side note, getting a little bit more real here, I just want to remind everyone that house cats are domesticated. They cannot survive well on their own whatsoever. They usually die within just a year or two, if not less. So don't leave your house cats out when you go home from your summer vacation or anything like that. It's better to find a safe shelter for them, because they probably won't survive. Yeah, there we go. Anywho, she does slip on some rocks and twists her paw in the middle of a hunt, and though it hurts when Tidestar suggests she retires, she does think about it. She's feeling pretty useless due to her injury, despite all of Whitefoot's encouragement. She talks it over with Echolite, who suggests a position of mediator, a role that isn't always present in the clan, but useful for cats who want to help others through words rather than claws. She appreciates the idea and tries to keep an open mind, as she's named TideClan's first mediator. And I have played ahead a little bit, and I will say, don't you guys worry, she will not be held back by her injury. She does have quite the character development next year, but she is actually happy to be mediator. It's not like she's half forced into the position, but at the same time she's not unhappy with it. She does, however, want to be a warrior, and as I said, wait until next year. Her story gets better. Anywho, River Drizzle joins at the start of Leaf Bear, actually, as she looks for shelter, because she's a rogue. She looks well-fed and clearly knows how to take care of herself, however. Her first patrol was a solo hunt where she brought back a stranded turtle. And you guys, if you don't know the difference between a turtle and a tortoise, A turtle, of course, lives in the water. They usually have flippers and a little bit smoother, well, flatter shells. Whereas a tortoise have little feet and usually a higher shell. So there's a little information if you guys want. Now we're on to Splashdusk, who for once is not, his life isn't focused solely on Whitefoot. Let's see what happens. He was almost hit by a monster once again at the start of this year. Webnest was the one leading the patrol, as we know. He was not really being careful. And they went over a thunder path despite Splashdusk leading it. So he kind of had to run after Webnest, even though he was the leader of the patrol. He ends up tackling Webnest out of the way, and though he would have been hit by a monster, it actually screeches to a halt right before it hits him. So he's very thankful for that. Not a lot more happens with him until the colder seasons. So Splashdusk actually notices how Echopaw is feeling down and Sofa Swipe needing herbs, so he actually spent a lot of time helping out the medicine cats with escorting Echopaw to find herbs, the herbs she needed, even letting her boss him around so she would cheer up, which is so adorable. Splashdusk is also shocked to hear about the rejection Whitefoot faced from Badgertooth. He did think that Tom was quite adorable, and he'd noticed what seemed like a crush on him. And though he was honored, he had been enjoying his time with Shellburst a lot lately. Speaking of, Shellburst spends most of her time on solo patrols, scouting or hunting the territory, and defending the borders. She's grown confident with her skills to predict any outcome to her patrols, thus limiting her risks. As the colder seasons come around, she comes back to camp with 2 chickens hanging from her jaws. Everyone in camp is impressed that she risked her life going close to the 2 legs. However, Tidestar seems frustrated with her recklessness. Ironically. I don't know, Tidestar is a little bit of a hypocrite sometimes. Anywho, with the frustrations she's feeling about her clanmates, Shellburst takes a moment to go talk to Nightclaw, a cat she really looks up to, and the two talk about their bloodthirsty nature and how to cope with it and feel less like an outsider. She got a sprain after she and Aspenrip slipped on a rock, and from her position outside the medicine den, she imagines how easily it would be for her to attack Tidestar from here. He'd disappointed her as a leader, but Shellburst was trying her best not to hurt others needlessly. She is a good cat, but for some reason she just has this, well, bloodthirsty nature. It's not more than that. Which is a little bit eerie seeing her be so aggressive, but at the same time she really tries hard not to do anything. Anywho, she quite openly shares her thoughts to Splashdusk actually, and likes hearing his opinion on things so that she can make a new assessment of the situation. And during the whole chicken kerfuffle, Splashdusk is actually on her side and feels that Tidestar is just not being fair in this case. Badgertooth starts the year off by developing a crush on Splashdusk of all cats. He spreads mean rumors rooting from all of Splashdusk's complaining, which means every time Splashdusk complains about anything, Badgertooth takes that as utmost truth and goes around telling everyone else. Badgertooth has also been enjoying the feeling of relaxing during the warm seasons. He's happily practiced hunting and fighting techniques with Splashdusk, who Badgertooth is convinced is starting to like him back. Badgertooth works hard, very, very hard, to make the camp to make the camp safe for everyone, and gets all red in the face when cats compliment him on how strong the walls around camp is. When Whitefoot asks Badgertooth out, he must admit it was his fault that everyone was staring. After he had gasped so loud that the entire camp was alerted. He then quickly said no and hit himself afterwards, because the truth is, he had feelings for Whitefoot as well as Splashdusk, but he hadn't sorted them out quite yet and was quite simply not ready for the question. While securing camp, he found a sheltering snake under a rock and is panicked, and in a panic threw it into the middle of camp, then proceeded to panic even more and run over before someone got bit and threw it out. Despite his methods, the clan does actually praise him for his braveness. Okay, you guys. Here we are with Gorseclaw. So Gorseclaw earns some respect for Tempestfur after she of course saves her life. Her admiration of rogues, however, is only encouraged as Tempestfur only just joined. Well, last year, but she was a former rogue. She starts imagining life as a rogue and pondering upon the path with more seriousness as time goes on, eventually starting to go beyond TideClan's territory, meeting all sorts of new scents and animals, although she always makes it back in time for no one to worry. Gorseclaw trains through the blasting sun until laying on the ground exhausted from the heat. While on a patrol, Gorseclaw also takes a break to think about her actions, her way of doing things, her beliefs, and asks if she's on the right path. She later that night returns to camp more certain than ever of her beliefs. She starts disappearing from camp more and more often than not. And more often than not, she can't be found for a day or two, then returns as if nothing had happened. No one seems to say anything, not even Tidestar. On her solo patrols, she starts messing with poisonous lizards and salamanders, and that she can find along the beaches. Unsure why, but it was very scary to know this. And towards the end of the year, she daydreams about slaughtering every cat she despises, often growling to herself. And due to this thought, I did actually time all her dislikes with 2. So if she had 6 dislikes with someone, it would now be 12. Of course, she does also have an apprentice in Pansypaw, but we don't even mention her here because Gorseclaw basically completely ignored her. We will get to her soon enough, but for now, let's do Nightclaw. She notices how Lakepaw isn't taking care of himself well. And Nightclaw is also shocked, of course, when her mate, Eaglewing, dies. She likes him, she loves him, of course. She thought he'd be an elder with her here. Though she is sad, she is determined to enjoy her days on the warm sand while she can. She'll join him in Starkland soon enough, but she could wait for that day. She wanders off one day due to her age, the whole clan goes searching for her. However, she's found completely fine and quite frustrated at how much of a fuss there was at her disappearance. Nightclaw knows at her age that she's always been Nightclaw knows her age and has always appreciated seeing cats like Lakeminnow and Shellburst grow into respectful cats. She's sad she's never had kids of her own, and so when a loner decides to leave their kittens with the clan, Nightclaw happily adopts them, sometimes getting advice from Floodheart, who gets some life back after seeing the kittens. And these kittens, of course, is Pansypaw and Streampaw. And Nightclaw is absolutely furious when Pansypaw loses her joy after training with her mentor. She threatens a Gorseclaw one night and is pleased to see Pansypaw slowly getting her energy back and start learning with her brother more. As a kitten, Pansykit is very quiet but has warm eyes. She gets apprenticed to Gorseclaw, of course, and slowly but surely it feels like her eyes go duller and duller, at least to the cats who are around her, especially Nightclaw, as we saw. After a couple days, Gorseclaw starts ignoring her and doing the bare minimum to train her. Unbeknownst to her, this is due to a threat Nightclaw gave her. Pansypaw, more often than not, has to run to keep up with the restless she-cat, and it's not uncommon for her to get lost in the process. During one of her many times lost in the woods, Pansypaw gets distracted by a dream she has. It ends up not leading to anything, but still intriguing to know. So everyone, that was the entirety of year 3. I hope you guys actually enjoyed this episode, of course, and the new style of drawing I have been doing. I am very excited actually to see how much easier it is to draw cats like this and see the scenes becoming a little bit more, well, scenes. Instead of just drawing the cat in a stiff lineup. So, with glimpses into year 3, I am excited to show you guys year 4, as I have already been working on that, as well as year 5, and my gosh, do we have a lot coming. But until then, you guys, I hope you guys have an absolutely wonderful month until the next time. And I hope to see you then. Bye-bye!